Welcome back to Questions for the Rector. I'm your host, Stephen Heiner, and with us, as always, is the Rector of Most Holy Trinity Seminary, His Excellency Bishop Donald Sanborn. Hello, Your Excellency.
Hello, Stephen.
Well, we were actually going to try to do this episode last week, but I suppose as in the spirit of our episode about Christmas holidays with the relatives, we didn't want to ruin everybody's plans for the weekend. And of course, those plans were about the Super Bowl. And I wanted to set the stage for our watchers and our listeners by sharing a couple stories about His Excellency. The first one is a haircut I think you got some years ago.
Oh, it was probably about 1978, 79.
So when dinosaurs roamed the earth,
Yes.
there was a haircut going on. And, you know, barbers like to make small talk. And he asked His Excellency, who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? And His Excellency responded.
I should add that the Super Bowl, whatever year it was going to be held in that area. That was in the San Francisco area, and it was going to be held there. So that made it all the worse, you might say. Go on.
So he asked, who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? And you responded,
what's the Super Bowl?
So that's stage one of this.
He didn't ask me anything else thereafter. It was silent thereafter.
Because
all he said was, well, it's a football game. That's all he said.
Because he thought you were an alien from outer space.
Yes, that I didn't know what the Super Bowl was.
Story number two, this was, I think, you were in Florida, and a man came up to you and said, oh, Your Excellency, I'm going to the Indianapolis 500 next week, so I'm sorry I won't be able to make Mass. And your response was?
No, well, first it was California.
Okay, he was in
California. But that doesn't matter. And I said, well, no, that's not a legitimate excuse. You have to go to Mass. I mean, you can't watch a race and miss Mass. And then I never saw him again. That was it. Both the husband and wife stopped coming.
Now, here someone might insert, well, Your Excellency, it's not his fault that there wasn't a Mass available in Indianapolis. Could I go to Mass and then sanctify my Sunday by going to an auto race?
He wanted to watch it on television.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it was just to sit home and watch it.
And he was going to miss Mass to watch an auto race.
Yes. That was the whole idea. I was nice. I just said that's not a legitimate excuse. That was it.
And we never saw him again.
He said, I just have to watch that race. That's what he told me.
Well, there's a great attachment here, Your Excellency, and I think that's what maybe we fail to understand as moderns is how much sports has inserted itself into our daily lives, and then it's even taken over Sunday. And part of how I've started to see this more clearly was two episodes. One I did with you about sanctifying the Sunday on Restoration Radio, and one I did with Bishop Dolan and Father Chicata about sports in general. And both of these episodes helped me reform my ways, I would say. I was quite attached to sports. I was quite sad, you could say, after the episode with Bishop Dolan and Father Chicata, I have to give up my attachment to these sports teams. And then with the episode I did with you, understanding about the fact that Catholic families used to sometimes hear multiple masses on Sunday. They would go to Vespers. That what has happened in our times, people have conflated recreation and leisure with Sundays, and that is not what sanctification of the Sunday primarily is.
Well, where should we start?
I think let's start with sanctification of the Sunday, Your Excellency. What does that really mean?
Well, by law, it means that you attend Mass and that you refrain from unnecessary servile work and unnecessary public commerce. Public commerce means shopping malls and even food stores. That's public commerce. Unnecessary. That's the law. Now, the law does not specify anything else. So, however, by Catholic custom, you would do things that were not distracting. You see, typically you would maybe visit relatives but you would not engage in distracting activity. For example, we were forbidden as kids in the 1950s to play any sports on the street or wherever we played, in parking lots and whatnot. This is in New York City. And you could hear a pin drop on the street. Everybody was a Catholic, either Italian or Irish. And people just observed that. It was all quiet. Sunday was quiet. You hardly even heard cars go by. It was a very quiet day, in the 1950s, and I remember it very distinctly. It was very special, and we got dressed up for mass, and there was a special dinner at noon, or more or less at noon, and we stayed dressed in our Sunday clothes for that. That was Sunday was a special day. Now it's just another leisure day, and you get mass over with as soon as you can, and then you engage in some sort of typically distracting thing and if you're a Novus Ordo, you can go to mass the night before, and then get mass over with as soon as you can, and then you have the whole day Sunday to do whatever you want. So the weekend has been enshrined as a type of fun time, and the Sunday obligation is something that has been minimalized.
Yes, I think we see that blending of Saturday and Sunday more and more. And if we think back to what you've alluded to in previous discussions about the Legion of Decency and the effect that the church was able to have on the culture in this way, and what happened when the Legion of Decency went away, sports has really risen in the time since Vatican II. And I would like to think that if Catholic bishops were still asserting their authority the way that they did in the time you were growing up, we wouldn't have giant sporting events on Sundays because a boycott would have been encouraged, and Catholics are too significant of a number to be ignored.
Yes, I agree. I think the bishops would have said something. For example, all of the stores were closed too. You couldn't get anything. I mean, everything was closed. It was, there was no commerce, but that started to change in the early 1960s. Actually, now the late 1960s, I'd have to say. Vatican II really brought in, it coincided. It was the general apostasy from the faith was starting, And so you would have department stores open in the morning or something like that. And so it gradually fell apart. And then the sports mania became very, very prevalent too, with the 1970s, 1980s, and thereafter.
So there wasn't a Super Bowl party here at the seminary this
No,
weekend.
there was no Super Bowl party.
Is a Super Bowl party a way to sanctify your Sunday, Your Excellency?
I would say no. I think there is an obsession and mania about sports, which is unhealthy. Let's go back to St. Thomas Aquinas. We recreate in order to work better. That's the only reason for recreation, is to work better. So there has to be some recreation for both the body and the mind to do something else, to do something light, you might say, to think about something light. In order to work better. So recreation has a very specific place in human society, and it should not be extolled as if it were some end in itself. I mean, this frenzy about football players, etc., and baseball players, and as if they're some sort of public heroes, and it's just absurd. I mean, it shows a real degradation of society. It's a very bad sign for society. You think of the Romans, cheering at the gladiators and all of that. It's a sign of decadence.
We're going to talk about this in a different episode about the way that a home is decorated, but one of the ways that you might see a decoration is stickers or banners of a sports team around, because there is a religiosity to the observance of these sports teams.
It's a fanaticism and about something that is, I think, fundamentally dumb. To see big brutes charging at each other in order to bring a ball to a certain point on the field, I think that is really low on the intellectual level. You could have buffalo do that, or you could have, various other animals do the same thing practically. And it'd be one thing to play it. That would be a certain recreation if you want to take the chance of breaking your head or something like that. But to watch it with the frenzy, where most of it is watched, to me, it's just so dumb.
Now, there was a young Donald Sanborn that collected baseball cards, I am told.
Yes, I did, but I mean, I wasn't in a frenzy about these people. I mean, I thought it was kind of nice, but I mean, it was nothing like it is now. I mean, nothing like that. And baseball too. That a grown man hits the ball, so that means he's got a good eye and a good arm. Then he can run fast. I mean, it's pretty low. I mean, how is that interesting?
I think, too, Your Excellency, that idea that, as I said at the beginning of the episode, people conflate recreation with sanctification of the Sunday, and recreation can happen any day of the week. It's not limited to Sunday, and that's not what our Lord didn't say recreate on the Sabbath. He said keep holy the Sabbath.
Well, it is a day of rest, though. So I mean, it's not to exclude some recreation. In other words, doing things that are restful or recreational. I mean, in a sense, but the distraction is the whole thing.
I was thinking of your example about playing, because I'm gonna say, well, kids playing, that's recreation, but you didn't do it because it was something
You didn't want to make noise.
You didn't want to make noise, but that's also something you can do every other day of the week.
Yes.
So I think there was a again, the push
Yes.
towards sanctification of the Sunday, not, oh, we're only going to recreate on Sunday. That's the primary purpose. There's so many other ways that a Catholic family can sanctify the Sunday that doesn't necessarily involve recreation.
Yes. Well, typically they would have benediction at the end of the day on Sundays too, and there was another. A lot of people would go to benediction, but it's the distraction and the frenzy that is the problem. It's not so much that, say, you would play a football game on Sunday, with your friends or something. That's not so bad. It's the frenzy of professional sports that is absolutely something that is offensive to Sunday.
Well, also too, outside of Sunday, it takes people up and down. They're completely drawn into this, and it isn't, as you always say, it's just a game.
It's just a game, and it's not, as I said, it's very low on the intellectual scale. I think a young person playing some sort of easy Mozart sonata is far elevated, more elevated, than that. I mean, that would be certainly a nice thing to do on Sunday. There's some sort of intellectual activity would be a good thing to do on Sunday. Something that elevates you, even if it's art or something like that. Reading a good book, anything like that would be better than just this. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It's just so blank. People charging at each other, human beings charging at each other and banging their heads on each other, crushing each other for a ball that they're supposed to get to the other side of the field.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, it is degrading to humanity. And then they're paid these enormous prices, I mean, you're going to laugh, but I think professional sport, if I were the king, I would ban professional sports, but I think they should be paid at a very low level. I mean, they do not contribute a lot to society.
Do you classify them in the bread and circuses segment?
Yes. The ancient Romans were very, very enthusiastic about the gladiators.
Why is it important that our recreation be uplifting as opposed to simply something like sports, which is, I think, what passes for watching sports, rather, not even just playing sports, just watching sports?
Well, again, playing sports is recreation for the body and a certain amount of recreation for the mind. You have to think about certain things, not much in football, but in various games you have to think. But primarily the body, and that's fine. They could do that. That's nothing wrong with that. But it should be again, it's watching something that is both intellectually desertic. That would be the only way I could put it. Zero, and which also appeals to a lot of low instincts, in the sense battle and get them, and this is it's watching practically warfare. And it's just a low thing for human beings to be excited about. It doesn't lift human beings. That would be apart even from Sunday. And as I'm saying, this frenzy about professional sports is something totally disordered, in my opinion.
Some of the activities I've observed families do on Sunday include reading from the Catechism Explained, so that there's some catechetical knowledge, or the liturgical year, or Father Leonard Goffein's sermons. They might watch it. They might watch or listen to another sermon. There's so many available on the internet these days, but there are so many ways to quietly observe the Sunday in a restful manner, in a recreative manner that doesn't involve watching professional sports, or watching secular films, or anything along those lines. That if you like to read, Sunday might be a day when you only read Catholic books, that you have 6 other days of the week to read the other things that you might be interested in, maybe a history book. But on Sundays, we should have a special dedication to thinking about sanctifying the Sunday.
Yes, the purpose of life is to go to heaven. So Sunday is the day that we dedicate to God, and we should do those things that pertain to heaven. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do something sacred the whole day. It's just there should be a sense of Sunday, a sacred sense of Sunday that we have lost.
Well, I even note what you mentioned about staying in your Sunday clothes all day, Your Excellency. That was something that you mentioned to me that I started to observe after our conversation those years ago. But we want to get home and get comfortable as soon as possible. So throw off those Sunday clothes and put on something comfortable. And that staying in your Sunday clothes is also a way to sanctify the Sunday. Remember what day this is. And I'm already anticipating some watchers and listeners thinking, "Oh, Your Excellency, did I sin by going to a Super Bowl party this weekend? Have I sinned by going to sports on Sunday in the past?"
It's not against the law. The law is the law. So it's not against the church law or divine law. But I think that it's certainly incompatible with in the spirit of Sunday. And I think that if the church were in its proper state, it would be against the law, in my opinion. If you look at the older books regarding Sunday, they condemn large sports events. You see, from the 30s and the 20s. If you read those books, the authors do. In other words, they say they consider that a violation of Sunday. But that's not the law. You see, you can't make a law where there isn't one. So I would not say that they are violating a law, but I think that they are violating the spirit of Sunday.
Well, as always, listeners and watchers, if you enjoyed this content, please feel free to like and share. You can also send a super thanks if you'd like to help support our work here at the seminary. As always, Your Excellency, thank you for your time.
Thank you.